Chapter 706, The Wedding. Flowers and the red carpet paved the way from the entrance of St. Paul's to deep inside the church. It was a sunny day, just nice for a grand wedding. Beside the road gathered countless commoners, as though waiting for something. Each of them held confetti in their hands, ready to release at any time. Chang Qiuqiao blushed at the confetti. Don't tell me they are waiting for Brother Shu. Is he getting married so soon? Chen Zuan smacked his lips. Wow, he's getting married when so many people want to take his head? Impressive. But the thing is, I don't think anyone else's wedding can be so grand here. In his heart, only Lu Shu deserved a wedding of such scale. Chang Qiuqiao stared at the confetti, looking distressed. But I'm scared of fireworks and firecrackers since I was young. I may scream. Chen Zuan paused. Then has it ever occurred to you that you could be the neon beast? Chang Qiuqiao was speechless. Chao Qingxi and Han Yu too. Neon? What the heck? What a lame joke. Chang Qiuqiao quipped, Brother Zuan, congratulations on reaching halfway to Brother Shu's level. Thank you. Chen Zuan said proudly. But Brother Shu is fine because he's strong. I'm afraid sooner or later you'll get beaten up for your remarks, Chang Qiuqiao said with a cold laugh. What are you saying? Hurry up. Bah. Chen Zuan's face darkened. Ha! Chang Qiuqiao gave another cold laugh. Only Lu Shu would cooperate with Chen Zuan. At this moment, a black luxury car stopped outside St. Paul's through a way cleared out by the crowd. Lu Shu alighted from the car with Coral in his arms. Coral had opened her eyes, looking at the cheerful crowd. Instantly, paper flowers shot out like confetti. Lu Shu walked down the red carpet with Coral in his arms. It was like a dream. This was a specially arranged wedding planned by the cartel. When Lu Shu mentioned that he was bringing Coral to the St. Paul's church, everyone immediately understood Coral's wish, except Lu Shu. Hence, they had arranged the ceremony in the name of justice. When Lu Shu walked past, Chen Zuan, Chang Qiuqiao and Han Yu gasped in shock. Chen Zuan could not believe his eyes. Although this is not entirely unexpected, my worldview has been once again shaken after seeing Brother Shu with my own eyes. Brother Shu, my idol. Chang Qiuqiao exclaimed. The wedding that caused a huge splash in the entirety of Albia was really Lu Shu's. At this moment, a few metahumans rushed in from the outside. They surrounded St. Paul's aggressively, but were brought to a standstill by the commoners. Lu Shu walked to the church steadily. The seats on both sides of the alley were empty. He had heard the commotion behind, but chose to ignore it. Against the noisy background, he simply walked towards the priest calmly, with Coral in his arms. There were no flower girls or children holding the ring nor candles. The wedding was grand yet simple. Without a ring, Lu Shu took out 2 cans of fake Coke from his seal of lands. He got them from Zhao Yangchen's grocery shop. Smiling, he pulled off the tabs. As expected, the cans remained sealed. Lu Shu smiled bitterly. Legend has it that if you pull off the tab from the can and the can is not open, the tab will be blessed. Wearing it will bring you good luck. Coral lay in Lu Shu's arms. Her face looked pale. She smiled. She knew, from the moment she informed Lu Shu of this trip, that Lu Shu did not get what she meant. But it was fine. In the end, he still brought her here, despite the rising tension outside. The gray-haired priest asked with a smile, Are there any legal factors that demand the stopping of this wedding? No reply. Any objections to this wedding? No reply. The cartel metahumans in the crowd had already started a fight with the Denki. Meanwhile, Chen Zuan, Chang Qiuqiao and Han Yu guarded the entrance of the church. They stopped whoever attempted to enter. But they were outnumbered. Within a few minutes, they had been wounded multiple times. Chen Zuan laughed bitterly. How unfair. We guard the door when Brother Shu is having his wedding inside. Outside St. Paul's, a man walked towards the church in an imposing manner. He was Satan. Staring at the three of them, Satan calmly asked in English, "What's the point of fighting to death for someone else? Do you think you could stop my chariot?" Chen Xuan scratched the back of his neck in confusion. What did he say? Chang Qiuqiao rolled his eyes and translated for him. Chen Xuan was still confused. Chariot? Why do I not see any? Chang Qiuqiao asked, "Do I have to translate for you?" Of course. Quick. Chen Xuan was getting impatient. So Chang Qiuqiao asked Satan in English where his chariot was. Satan laughed coldly. Futile attempt. Soon you shall understand why you can only be ants. All of a sudden, more than 10 members of the Danki darted towards them. As though 3 Class Cs were not worthy of his action, Satan simply stood aside to watch with cold eyes. Like leaves in a storm, the 3 of them struggled under the attack. But they did not yield no matter what. The Danki members collapsed into pools of blood, and Chen Xuan and the other 2 were covered in blood too. When Chen Xuan braced himself for the next round of attack, he realized that all of the Danki members were dead. Suddenly, he let out a hearty laughter. I am Chen Xuan. Who dares to fight me? Satan stepped towards him, his face frosty as ice. He was like a giant ready to crush an infant. At this critical moment, a spear thrust out from the crowd. Chao Qingxi had finally made her move. She had remained inconspicuous before this moment. Nie Ting once said that Chao Qingxi's composure and disguise made her a talented assassin, but not a leader. But the latter half of his sentence was that Chao Qingxi would be the best assassin. It was just the right time, and even Satan did not see it coming. At that instant, Satan, an expert who was only 1 step away from Class A, hurriedly pulled over a Danki member as his shield. Chapter 707, No, I don't. Outside of St. Paul's a river of blood had formed. However, the violence and cruelty there had no impact on those inside of the church at all. Mr. Lu Shu, do you agree to take Ms. Coral Johnson as your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold, from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you apart? Lu Shu remained silent for a long moment. He had once watched an identical plot in a movie, but today, he was the main character. Yes, I do. Exhausting all her remaining strength, Coral hugged Lu Shu's neck tightly, as if to hold on to the last wisp of warmth in this world. Ms. Coral Johnson, do you agree to take Mr. Lu Shu as your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold, from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you apart? Silence. I'm sorry, Lu Shu, Coral said, tears welling up her eyes. No, I don't. Drops of tears rolled out of her eyes, as if falling into an abyss. In tears, Coral smiled. I said it, but I think you didn't hear it. I will say it again. Lu Shu, please stay with me for the rest of our lives. If you say no, I will wait till you agree. If not, I will think of other ways. Lu Shu felt a giant hand grasping tightly at his heart. His blood flow almost stopped due to the excruciating pain. In fact, I heard it. In fact, I knew you did, Coral continued, smiling. I know I've been putting in more effort than you, but it doesn't matter. It was my wish that one day you would like me too. And now, that wish has finally been fulfilled. Lu Shu was speechless. Coral gave a light pat at Lu Shu's chest and said, finally, I have a place in here. I am selfish to insist that you accompany me during my last moments. But I don't want you to live in the shadow of my death from today onwards. Hence, I'm sorry, Lu Shu. I don't agree. I can't agree. Actually, I have a secret. I always have a feeling that I may not love you this much when my Gungner breaks. I don't know why, but I don't want to accept it. So, please forgive me. This is the best ending for me. It's so good to have you in this world. Coral gently ran her fingers across Lu Shu's face. Farewell, my love. Then, there was a crack, as if something inside Coral had broken apart. Lu Shu could feel the rapid fading of her vitality until her energy waves became undetectably weak. Coral's eyes were shut, and her adorable eyelashes would not dance again. The invisible hand lifted Lu Shu's heart forcefully and cruelly. The agony was suffocating. The priest released a heavy sigh. He patted Lu Shu's shoulder and exited from the door, leaving a world of silence for him. All of a sudden, the white tree mark in Lu Shu's palm shone brightly. The broken Gungner in Coral's body transformed into white stars and radiance, flowing into his palm. In the next instant, Lu Shu felt himself in another world, which seemed to harbor a grand and eternal will. The new epoch has finally arrived, someone said in the world. The voice was seemingly transmitted to Lu Shu's brain directly. In silence, Lu Shu raised his head to gaze at the towering tree. Just like Coral's description, the tree blotted out the sky, and countless creatures inhabited its branches. Tens of thousands of roots immersed underground, leading to nowhere. Who are you? Asked Lu Shu. As you can see, I am the world tree. You came with the key, and I have always been waiting. Oh, said Lu Shu. Then, he kept silent. He felt nothing, as if his heart had been dead. The voice suddenly said in a joking tone that girl's feelings for you stemmed from the reliance of a branch on its main trunk. Your grief will be relieved when you recognize this. Lu Shu fixed the world tree with a calm stare. Gang bullshit. The will was not angered. It continued to indulge in its own analysis. In fact, there is a way to save her, but in exchange you have to give her the world tree. Has it ever occurred to you why she fell for you, a mere mortal? Her bloodline was exceptionally pure, just like her ancestors. It is no exaggeration to claim that she is a goddess in this world. How can a god love a human? I belong to you, and her feelings stemmed from the connection between Gungner and me. In this case, are you willing to save her? The will repeated. It seemed that Lu Shu was connected to the bloodline of the world tree. It was a strange feeling. At this moment, Lu Shu suddenly understood that this grand existence was really his. And the tree was telling the truth, without a doubt. Sitting on a root, Lu Shu went quiet. As it turned out, he was fooled by fate. And the loneliest individual on this world was actually he himself. Then, he started to mock himself. So that's why a wonderful girl like her would like me, a lame joker. At the end of the day, I am still unworthy of love. Lu Shu continued, as if talking to himself, do you know? In the past, a girl confessed to me. But in the end I realized that she only wanted me to help her do her homework. Ridiculous, right? Will you die if you do your own work? Why are feelings and lies so meaningless? So, are you still willing to save her? The will asked. Lu Shu suddenly started laughing. Sometimes I really hate the word of fate. No matter how far you go, it's all lies. Even dreams are better than that. But, so what? I'm still willing to save her. For some reason, I want to thank fate for at least caring for me for once. Alright, screw all the bullshit. I simply don't want to see her dead. What's wrong with me? I'm not so helplessly emotional. His tone had finally turned serious. I want to save her. It was like that day when he received a fake 50 yuan note. Despite his urge to take revenge against the world in the same way as how he had been mistreated, he still bore all the unhappiness himself. This time, he had been well fooled by fate. But he would rather believe that everything he had felt and seen was real, that they had truly existed. At this moment, the will seemed to have withdrawn from the connection with Lu Shu. A distant voice sounded, the upcoming era is far more interesting than any other history. I will look forward to it. Suddenly, Lu Shu's consciousness returned to the church. The white tree mark in his palm slowly rose up, shining brightly. Then, as if it was alive, the mark gently fell into Coral's chest. Dong dong. It was Coral's heartbeat. Her vitality was recovered. Coral was reborn. This time, she acquired the entire world tree, which would belong to her from this day onwards. Carefully, Lu Shu lowered her body and placed her on the soft red carpet. With the cantab on his finger, he strode towards the door of the church. Outside, there were battles that he had to fight. As he left, his figure looked painfully lonely yet decisive. Farewell, my love. Coral felt that she had had a long dream. In the dream, she was like a vulnerable little girl, running about in the darkness. She felt that she was losing something forever, which made her heart ache. She ran on and on for a few days and nights. Finally, there appeared a gray castle in the dark world. It stood in her way. In front of the castle, Coral punched the walls and cried continuously. Her fists were bleeding, and her bones almost fractured under the impact. But she did not want to stop, which would make her lose the dearest thing in her life. Hence, she was willing to exchange her life for it. With a crack, the gray castle finally yielded. The noise was deafening in this quiet world. However, the fissure was still too small. The gray castle seemed unbeatable without true power. Lying on the red carpet, Coral was like a princess in a grand ceremony. Her beauty was beyond words. At the instant when the crack appeared, a drop of a tear rolled down her cheeks. It was like the first ray of light before sunrise. The princess mumbled, as if sleep-talking, "Don't go, Lu Shu." Her voice was as soft as the mist. No one knew whether she had really said it. Chapter 708, can't continue this conversation. Even Coral did not know how long she had been dreaming for. She cried in front of the gray barrier. The thing she loved the most was about to break. Just at that moment, her magical instincts suddenly came in front of a massive tree. A voice softly said, "I have drifted from place to place across time and space. This is the first time someone has surrendered so readily after all these years." Coral was dumbfounded. Didn't she die? What was this tree? Where was she? The voice said, "Do you remember the Gungner?" Coral was dumbfounded. Yes. Do you remember the deities? Yes. Do you remember a person called Lu Shu? Coral was dumbfounded. This name was very familiar. But it seemed to have been forcefully covered in soil by something and died along with the Gungner. This name was undoubtedly important. So important that she felt that it was familiar. Everything that had happened in the past seemed to flash past, and then disappear. Who is Lu Shu? Remember this name. He will begin a new era. What era? You will yearn for it. But the world tree did not say what kind of era it would be. It remained tight-lipped. But why do I have to remember him? Coral asked softly. Because he gave up on me, the most valuable thing in the world, to save your life, the world tree chuckled. Why do I feel like you're at Sundra 1? Asked Coral curiously. I feel like we can't continue this conversation. The next moment, Coral's world was once again plunged into darkness. The world tree mark appeared on Coral's palm. The Gungner was no longer in a symbiotic relationship with her. Rather, it was a true weapon that she possessed. As for the world tree's abilities, no one knew what it was capable of. A faint voice repeated Lu Shu's name over and over again in the darkness, as if it were trying its best to remember. Lu Shu took large strides and walked out of the church. When he opened the doors of the church with a bang, the sunlight and blood from outside all came into sight. Everyone momentarily stopped fighting. They looked at the young man standing at the doors of the church. His expression was peaceful, but full of resolution. The 36 threads from the sparrow shade swept forth like a storm. Satan, who was fighting Chao Qingzi, could only look on helplessly as he saw his subordinates die one by one. Everyone had been accurately stabbed in the heart. The 36 gray threads were like strings of death. They killed Satan's subordinates with great ease. It was quiet inside the church. Coral silently lay down on the red carpet. Her head was decorated with flowers. Outside the church, it was chaos. It was a bloodbath. The ground was littered with corpses. Lu Shu calmly walked through the battlefield. It was as if he was walking through a flower garden. Lives were lost whenever the sparrow shade passed by. Lu Shu was somewhat surprised that Chao Qingxi could match up against Satan. Chao Qingxi and Chen Zuan were also surprised that Lu Shu could now kill people instantly and easily. How terrifying. The world was quiet. Lu Shu walked alone. Following Niating, they had encountered another figure from the heavenly network who could calmly kill others. Furthermore, he was still a young man. The members of the cartel had also just arrived. They did not even put on makeup before joining the fight. The civilians by the side waved their flags and cheered them on. When the fight became too intense, they sought shelter in a building nearby and cheered through the windows. It was as if these civilians had become a part of the realm of cultivation. There was no separation between them. Satan opened and closed his arms. There were sounds of explosions. Lu Shu calmly looked at the battlefield. Satan had the rare ability to control air. Chao Qingxi and the people surrounding Satan had to continuously change positions, as Satan had thinned the air around him. They had to distance themselves away from Satan and breathe before they could continue fighting. Suddenly, someone jumped down from the rooftop of a building nearby like a wild horse. He carried a flame in his hand and threw it towards Satan. The person was in a frenzy. He shook his fist, as if he was performing. Someone from the cartel on the street suddenly pulled out a loudspeaker and played rock music. It was as if he had brought his own background music. Chen Zuan, Chang Qiuqiao and the rest were dumbfounded. To be honest, they had been on many assignments, but they had never seen such interesting metahumans. Lu Shu paid more attention. That person was cartel's leader. He was a fire-strength metahuman. He was only a single step away from reaching Class A. Although Satan was strong, Arturo's strength was unfathomable as well. He dared to support Lu Shu on Sardinia without restraint because he had made up his mind to maintain the cartel's neutrality. Now, a majority of the Department of Faith Theory were being held back by the puppet master in the northern city. He had to handle attacks from both sides. Satan felt that the situation was not in his favor and prepared to retreat. Lu Shu laughed coldly. Did you think you could come and leave as you wish? It was no wonder that Satan was called the top Class B in Europe. He suddenly drove Chao Qingxi and Arturo out. They chased after him on the streets and fought him. Boom. Bang. Lu Shu jumped into the sky. He was like a falcon in the sky. There was no way that no one noticed him. It was as if as long as he was on the battlefield, he would become the center of attention. The snowy mountain in Lu Shu's Sea of Qi suddenly collapsed with a crash. The number of sword prototypes increased again. A second small sword spirit jumped out of the snowy mountain. It happily huddled with concealed arrow. To Lu Shu's surprise, the sword spirit within Corpse Dog suddenly jumped out and greeted the sword spirit within concealed arrow. Lu Shu looked at the sunlight. He grew melancholic. Since he was not reliable, he would not blame anyone. He was probably the weirdest person in the world. No wonder not many people liked him. Concealed arrow and Corpse Dog flew towards Satan. When the two flying swords came in front of Satan, he turned around and tried to run. But he did not expect two small, white sword spirits to jump out of Concealed Arrow and Corpse Dog. He dodged the first sword spirit that tried to slap him. He also dodged Chao Qingxi's sword. His protective gear blocked the attacks from the cartel metahumans. But Concealed Arrow's sword spirit was laughing merrily. It still had not made its move. Everything seemed to have stopped in a freeze frame. The small sword spirit jumped out of Concealed Arrow. Its clear and melodious laughter pierced through the silence. While everyone had their eyes on the sword spirit, it suddenly shook its fist and punched Satan in the crotch. When Cheng Qiuqiao and Chen Zuan saw this, they wanted to close their eyes. How cruel! They could not understand what was happening. This was evidently a serious fight. Why was it that the moment Lu Shu appeared, everything had changed? If Arturo bringing his own background music was weird enough, what was with Lu Shu? Chapter 709, You Are Good Looking. They had been waiting for Lu Shu to carry out a massacre. For example, they wanted to fight tenaciously side by side with Lu Shu. No matter how injured he had become, Chen Zuan wanted to shout, "Chen Zuan is here. Who dares to fight me?" But now, he had no chance to do so. They had nothing else to do here. In a flash, the small sword spirit had come in front of Satan. Satan suddenly bent over like a cooked shrimp. Ouch! When Lu Shu saw his, he was very shocked as well. So the second sword spirit hit people in the crotch. Chen Zuan looked at Lu Shu in shock. So what if we are shocked? You should be the last person shocked by this. Good. He no longer had to call him Satan. He could just call him Erden One. Of course, he still had to see how strong this sword spirit was. If it were stronger, Lu Shu would be able to get a head start in battles. After this strange event, the members of the Danki quickly got into formation and protected Satan. They retreated back to the coast. What set them apart from other organizations was their unity and their high efficiency in coordinating attacks. The members of the cartel gathered around. But Lu Shu had suddenly lost his drive to fight. Chen Zuan carefully looked at Lu Shu. He should have been smiling, but he had a peaceful expression on his face. Brother Shu, was the wedding successful? Chen Zuan had an unpleasant premonition. Lu Shu leaned against the door of the church. We didn't marry. We broke up. Chen Zuan was dumbfounded. It was such a grand wedding ceremony, but now, they have broken up? He suddenly thought about what he had experienced in the past. He could not help but sigh. As expected. Your first love is part of your training. Your first love is not part of your training. Being single is, said Lu Shu calmly. From Chen Zuan's distress, plus 666. Were we talking about this? Chen Zuan glanced at the tab on Lu Shu's finger. For some reason, his heart skipped a beat. The tab was normal and plain. But when Lu Shu solemnly wore it on his finger, it was like a ring full of memories. He knew how weak the girl was when Lu Shu carried her in. So back then, Chen Zuan felt that he understood Lu Shu's feelings. He calmed down and softly comforted him. Feelings are like that. I dated Du Xueme for 7 days before breaking up with her, because I did not know that the quote, "What is reasonable is real, that which is real is reasonable," was by Hegel. Back then when she asked me who the quote was by, I replied with Lu Sun. After that, she broke up with me. Lu Shu slowly turned to look at Chen Zuan. He was silent. Didn't Lu Sun say so? From Chen Zuan's distress, plus 666. Suddenly, the trees along the streets of Albia sprouted new shoots. The roads were full of greenery. It was as if the trees were celebrating a grand ceremony. Lu Shu was dumbfounded. Someone discovered a tree, who had died and should have been replaced by the municipal government, sprouting again. The lime trees started to bloom. The entire city was filled with white flowers. Lu Shu knew the reason behind all this, but he could not help but look back at the church. These were heavenly visions produced after advancing to Class A. The girl in the church floated and quickly flew out. When she passed by the doors of the church, Lu Shu could not help but look over. He still had a glimmer of hope. But the girl calmly brushed past him, as if he was no different from the rest of the crowd. Suddenly, Coral stopped and hovered in front of Lu Shu. She stared at Lu Shu. "Have we met before?" Chen Xuan stood at the side. His jaw slowly dropped. What was happening? Even if the two of you fought, there was no need to act as if you did not know each other, right? Lu Shu laughed and did not reply to Coral's question. But there was a sting in his heart. Coral thought about it and said, "You are good-looking. Although you're not particularly good-looking." Coral then flew north. She had to save someone. Lu Shu was left alone in front of the church. He stared into space and did not speak. He suddenly laughed and said to Chen Xuan, "Come, let's go home." Chen Xuan just witnessed what had happened. Lu Shu was definitely not feeling God. He quickly caught up to Lu Shu and comforted him. "Don't be too upset. Those with the same illness sympathize with each other. Your fate is just as tragic as mine." Lu Shu shook his head. "No. Your fate is more tragic than mine." From Chen Xuan's distress, plus 666. "I am trying to comfort you here." Chen Xuan was simply dumbfounded. But he suddenly realized that Lu Shu was still Lu Shu. He did not fear how the world would treat him. He would still calmly face the world, as if nothing had changed. If he could redo his life, Lu Shu would have made the exact same decisions, until the world reached its end and light disappeared from this world. The 50 yuan counterfeit note of life floated along the river of time. Some decided to spend it, while others decided to tear it up. If one spent the money, maybe they would become happier. But Lu Shu had never regretted his decision. Coral's cousin quietly laid on the border of the northern city. The rainwater splashed on the earth by the side of the road, turning the road slightly yellow. Coral's cousin suddenly gasped in shock. "Oh no. I overslept. I have to hurry up. Who knows when Francesco will come?" They had fought the battle for 2 days and 2 nights. Both parties were exhausted. Even Francesco did not try to get past them. But after they finished this fight, they did not have the strength to even get up. Coral defied the laws of physics and landed straight beside her cousin. "Are you all right?" Coral's cousin looked at her. Not only was Coral unharmed, she had even advanced to Class A. He was wild with happiness. I'm fine. Francesco is no match for me." The members of the deities by the side kept quiet. At that moment, Coral's cousin suddenly saw Coral's hand and was dumbfounded. "Why do you have this tab on your hand?" Coral raised her hand and looked at the tab. She did not know why she was wearing it either. She just wanted to wear it. She treasured this simple and crude tab as if it were a rare treasure. Even she herself did not know why it was so important to her. Coral asked, "Don't you think that this tab is very pretty? It's different from the rest." Coral's cousin almost thought that Coral had a fever. What was so different about this tab? Chapter 710, A New Beginning. Inside the quiet and dark space, there was the seemingly faint sound of trickling water. There was no wind, and no other sound except for the water. This was like another world. Suddenly there was a flurry of footsteps. Someone said emotionlessly, "I know you can hear me, the arcane. Answer me." "Long time no see, Cloudy," a voice answered from somewhere in the darkness. "In 2018, Tiger Ji and I summoned you countless times. Why did you not answer us?" The arcane defended himself. "How could I answer you when all those people were killed in the battles? Then were you dead?" Cloud Yi's voice turned cold. "How can I confirm that you are not traitors?" The arcane's voice also became fierce under the bombardment of questions. "Why were we exposed that year? Why did Qing Wu and the rest die in the ambush? Now, only the 3 of us survived, out of 7 puppet masters. Either you or Tiger Ji betrayed us. Now tell me, is my suspicion ill-founded? In the darkness, Cloud Yi's voice was as cold as ice. There can be no traitors among puppet masters. Her words were articulated clearly and confidently, as if it was an unshakable religious belief. Ha! The arcane laughed. Can't be sure of that. I used to think so too, but I've changed my mind. Cloudy had seemingly calmed down. Time will prove everything. We shall all patiently wait for our king's glorious return. So what are you doing here? Asked the arcane, smiling. Don't pretend you are not there, Tiger Ji. Who can evade my senses in the darkness? A middle-aged man gave a laugh in the dark to show his presence. But he did not utter a word. Cloud Yi's voice was cold again. Why did you not stop him when the king gave the world tree away? You were the guardian of the tree. Were you by the side of the tree back then? You know, I can't even step out of that world. I have to rely on my magical instincts just to come here. Besides, I had a talk with him, the arcane said cheerfully. The new king is about to be awoken, and a fresh era is soon to begin. Everyone under the throne is a lackey. Nonetheless, the new king seems rather unusual. Tiger Ji commented with a hearty laugh. I agree with you. Our king is quite unique. But honestly speaking, I like it this way. I am asking you, why did you not stop him? Cloudy roared. Her fury silenced Tiger Ji at her side. The arcane was quiet for a long moment. I did. Who said I didn't? But the king made up his mind despite my repeated dissuasion. Besides, why are you so angry? The world tree is our king's treasure. He can take it back from the girl anytime he desires. The world tree is not even in our king's control now, Cloudy said with a cold laugh. Thanks for your reminder. The king learned that the world tree was the cure for the girl. What's wrong with you, the arcane? Are you expecting to fool us with such bad excuses? The king represents the absolute will. Of course I have to serve him according to his wish, the arcane explained. Then why did you seal the girl's memories? And give her a glimmer of hope? Cloud Yi's voice was spine-chilling. Her murderous intentions almost filled the entire dark space. How would I know that her emotions were so strong that she could open a crack on my seal? Why did I seal her memories, you asked? How can our king develop feelings for others? How can a man, who is in charge of all emotions, possess true feelings? The arcane roared. Cloudy, have you already forgotten the death of the old king of gods? Answer me, why did neither of you stop him? How did you protect him? Cloudy, Tiger Ji, you are sinful. Rot in hell. Both of you. After a few moments of silence, Cloudy said, don't live in the past, the arcane. You have gone out of your mind. Tell me how to forget. The arcane had gone seemingly mad due to exasperation. The king needs no emotions. Those are useless impurities. If the king needs no emotions, why did we pledge our loyalty for him? Said Cloudy calmly. The king represents the absolute will. It is his own business. But our duty is to serve him, and die for him whenever necessary. Remember this. The king has to ascend to his throne through a way paved by bones and blood. No one can help him with it. Don't interfere with the king's personal matters again, or I will kill you myself. I will tell the king about this matter in the future, and let him be the judge. Ha, I thought both of you had already made your move, the arcane mocked to his heart's content. It's fine. We'll see who's really willing to be the bones upon which our king's throne stands. I will kill the both of you too, if you are traitors. The footsteps drew distant. After a few ripples in the space, the world returned to emptiness. The capital, Luhai Lane. Coral has ascended to Class A, said Shi Xuejin, who was reading a document in his hands. Satan is still alive. He abandoned all his people and fled alone, though the latter did not mind at all. Germans are truly scary. Cartel's island-wide celebration has been ongoing for 3 days straight, for this victory. Lu Shu and the rest are on their way back home. Until there, Shi Xuejin looked up at Nie Ting. This time, you are wrong. You said that Lu Shu's flowers would grow when he did not sow, that he would always succeed when he did not mean to, that he would produce results despite his unreliable means. You were right in the past, but how about this time? The alliance with the deities is a gone case. The girl has amnesia now, according to Chen Zuan. His information should be accurate. Nie Ting did not even bother to open his eyes. The alliance aside, he has significantly weakened the various organizations in Europe. Isn't this our ultimate goal? Do you know how many kills he had along the way? Almost comparable to mine. Shi Xuejin corrected him expressionlessly. You are wrong again. He has killed more than you did when you were a Class B, 2 more. Shi Xuejin pointed out 2 fingers to show the number 2, but it looked more like the gesture of victory. At this moment, someone entered the yard. Heavenly King Nye, there was a call from the deities. They want to talk to you 10 minutes later. Will you be available? Nie Ting was stunned. Why the need for talks when she had amnesia? He had wanted Lu Shu to seduce her in an attempt for an alliance, but who would expect Lu Shu to almost marry her? Which spy would marry the target he was supposed to seduce? Impressive. Nie Ting had to admit. Page it over, ordered Nie Ting. 10 minutes later, Nie Ting's phone rang on the stone table. After he picked up the call, his face turned stern, as if he had been told something extremely unbelievable. Of course. We would love to cooperate with you. Then, Nie Ting hung up the call after a few polite greetings. After the call was over, he rubbed his temples. Strange. Something must be wrong. Shi Xuejin was confused. What on earth happened? Nie Ting turned to look at Shi Xuejin quietly. The caller claimed to be the cousin of the Master of Gods. He said the Master of Gods is determined to visit China because she insisted she had met the love of her life outside the church. She also said that they must have been a couple in her past life. She's even been suffering from a poor appetite recently because of that. Shi Xuejin took a long time to recover from his shock. Past life? This is ridiculous. Or is this the real true love? Nie Ting gazed at the walnut tree, distress written all over his face. How is this love? This is freaking fate. From Nie Ting's distress, plus 999.
What does it mean to be happy? 'Cause it looks like we all don't know. Glass half full or empty, then we just putting on the show. Try to look to the heavens.